So what's something that you can do in a game that if you saw someone do that in real life, you'd be very, very concerned?
Double jump.
Double jump is a good answer.
Double jump. I would instantly question all rules of physics and whatever gods you believe in. It doesn't make... I mean, there's ways you could in our, like, maybe they have, hey, you know what? Maybe they have the boots from the Super Mario Brothers movie, the original one, not the new one, because those jump boots worked, and that they could basically do whatever.
Like
I don't know. Yeah, double jump would be very disconcerting.
My cursed answer is quick load.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Overly Sarcastic podcast. I am Blue, and I'm joined by two lovely guests, JM8 from Second Wind and Matt from Extra Credits. Hello, hello. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Hello!
Thanks for having us.
We are here to talk about some video games, but not just any video games. I knew that I wanted to have an episode with you two on it, and I was racking my brain for an episode title that would be like condensable into a title and actually make sense as a concept, and we were able to come up with the idea of video game nostalgia. So we're going to be talking about games that we loved from when we were wee little gamers in our cribs, games that rewired our brains. Then we're going to take some Q&A from the audience about maybe all things gaming, maybe just focusing in on nostalgia. Indigo's the one who picks the questions. I have no idea what we've got coming in the pipeline.
It's video games themed, folks. I'm going to spoil that one for you right now. A lot of video games in this episode.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'll quickly start by saying a game that rewired my brain. We can talk about it for a little bit and then go on to the next person in the third one. But for me, I was contemplating throwing in for Age of Mythology because I played that game from a very young age, adored it dearly. I started playing the remake like last week on PS5 because it recently came out, since Microsoft is porting everything now. Yep. And they finally patched out the glitch that makes it crash all the time. So I can actually play the damn thing.
Classic glitch.
Which is great. But I really have to give it to, for the game that made me change as a person, as a gamer, has to be Journey from that game company, 2012. IGN's Game of the Year in 2012, and I was like, it's a stupid little indie game. What does that have to do with anything? But when I played it for myself 2 years later with a friend, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Because I had been very much like, your cereal box CDs and, early PC gaming before it got, like, good. So my experience getting a console was like getting a PS2 to play the Star Wars 3 movie tie-in game. So, like, my standards were rock fucking bottom.
Wow.
But
Amazing.
Playing Journey was my experience. And, of course, I was long-suffering Assassin's Creed fan. So, like, I have no leg to stand on. But playing Journey and seeing a game that was just so elegant in its design, like mathematical elegance of like the simplicity in ingenuity with the fewest amount of parts possible, was absolutely eye-opening to think that a game with so few polygons, so few shapes, so few colors could be so beautiful in sight and sound and mechanics. You can't interact with any other player except by just your little chirp, and yet you form bonds of genuine love and affection. It's a miraculous kind of game, and it has made me so much of a like vibes-based game player, music listener, movie watcher. I don't care about story, I don't care about plot, I don't care about characters. I am all about the vibe of a thing, and I probably would have gotten to that point anyway, but Journey really helped me figure that out, and it became a strong part of what I like in games going forward. So I wanted to throw that one out as my nostalgic game that rewired my brain.
That's awesome. I forget. I might have told all three of you this story, but I probably haven't told the listeners. Have I told you my tale with Journey?
No, we talked about this in the car when we got dinner before PAX East. Yeah.
So I'll recount it very quickly because I had a similar thing. I got to Journey late. It was years after it had been released, but I jumped on it because I just heard so many good things. And you have these emotional ties with the people that you're all going toward the center, the giant mountain at the end, and you have no way of communicating except for that wonderful chirp and like sort of different intonations you can sort of glean from that. And I had one person that stuck with me, just some rando, as they all are, through and through the entire journey, all the way up to this mountain. We finally made it and everything. And then at the end of the game, I forget exactly how it presents it, but it shows you finally the usernames of the people that you were with and how much time I think you spent with them. And I was like, this was a phenomenal experience. I cannot wait to like learn this person's name because we've gone through a bunch of hours together. And it was going down, and I finally see the person's name, and the PSN name was Scar Juice. I was like, I just had a deep emotional like journey, no pun intended, with a person with the moniker Scar Juice, and it's burned into my brain about how, no matter where you come from, no matter what walks of life you are from, no matter why you named yourself Scar Juice, you can still come together in games like this, and they are a real like emotional communal experience.
I'm just imagining like actual Blackbeard and like his little gamer setup in the quarters of his ship. Yar, that was an emotional experience.
It's amazing. It's a testament to the game as a whole that you can form a genuine human connection by simply chirping at someone called Dogfart40. And just be like, that's my bro right there. Right? Like that's my boy. And it's just very simple interactions. I think another thing with Journey as well, from a design perspective, is the idea of how everything is diegetic. Like all of its UI elements it's all done purely through in-game, in the universe representations, and I think it really just sucks you in. I'm a sucker for diegetic UI just in general. Dead Space being a great example of the UI being on the spine and everything like that, but it just does such a great job of pulling you into the experience. And a lot of the times designers will think, well, we're not being clear enough with all of this information, we need to be clearer, but sometimes that ambiguity is what pulls people in and makes them care, right? You start Journey and you're like, what am I doing? What is happening? And then slowly, by following the pieces of paper and other players, you just get, it's like a snowball of intrigue. And I think Journey does that beautifully.
It's a wonderful way to rewire your brain.
Definitely.
Well, it rewired my brain to want to surf down sand. I didn't know I wanted to do that
I have surfed
before.
down sand. You can do that at Great Sand Dunes National Park, and I fully ripped my pants doing that because of the friction from falling on my ass and then landing on sand and sliding down the dune.
Until you said the pants bit, it sounded like an advert. Like you were trying to say this is today's sponsor.
You should still do it. It's still really fun. It's just you will potentially rip your pants in an incredibly embarrassing way and then have to still walk or try and surf down the rest of the dune.
Just don't go with pants you care about is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. But that's not
Bad
something that
pants day.
rewired my brain. And I'm just going to go in order of who I see on my screen next. Matt, what is a game that you're nostalgic for that perhaps rewired yours?
Okay, so I'm going to do an honorable mention, and that which is a little bit later in my life, but then go into essentially what I decided mine was going to be, which is an odd choice, I feel like. The first one I do want to give an honorable mention to is actually, it's a little bit later in my life. I was just in college, but it was something that changed the way I actually thought about gaming, and that is Guitar Hero.
Ooh.
So Guitar Hero was the first time that I realized that a game could be a massively in-person social experience outside of an arcade. Even in an arcade, you are linked to like specific things. You put your quarters down, you're standing, perhaps you're around a cabinet, but it's only so many people can be around a cabinet. I started realizing that with Guitar Hero, everyone who wanted to play, whether you're someone who doesn't game or does a ton, whether you're super charismatic or also just someone who's quiet and likes to like dial in, no matter what, everyone had an equal footing at a party or something when Guitar Hero was being played. I love the fact that it was able to do that. I could go on more about the history and all the songs that I fucking love because I made a list here. Go back and look up on Spotify the original 2005 Guitar Hero just sound like the track list. And if you've played it as much as I have, it's burned into your memory. But like I had forgotten like just it's banger after banger after banger.
Amazing!
It's so good. But I will say I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back more
Even further.
To the year 1995. And when I was thinking about a game, there's lots of games that like rewired different ways I thought of small moments in the medium, but there's something that I don't know why, and maybe this is going to be my therapy session because I would appreciate some help as to why I feel so passionately about this, is the 1995 point and click adventure game Full Throttle. I know Jay and I talked about it ever so briefly the other day. Full Throttle is I believe a LucasArts game, but it's in this theme of like the old Sierra, like King's Quest or Space Quest
LucasArts.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
LucasArts, Sam and Max.
Schafer.
Yeah. It was the first one I believe he wrote and directed. Also, and this ties into I think why I've made why I think it is so special. It's the first time I realized that games, even though back then it was pixelated, they have a remaster which is actually quite good, where they redid all the art with some of the original creators, which is super fun. Also, game's only like 4.5 hours. Like, you can just do it. It's pretty great.
I love a short game.
And sweet.
Yeah. And like, but it was the first time I realized that like, you can tell it's not only just like jokes, right? Like, because a lot of these games were like super silly, and not to say that Full Throttle is not super silly, it absolutely is. But there's also like a cartoon, like a PG-13 cartoon plot going on, and it rewired how I thought like games could have like sort of like quick in the narratives in the style of cartoons. And moving that around, because there's also, you know, I was just starting to get into anime then, so I was trying to, like, I was in sort of that thing. This obviously isn't an anime thing, but this had real voice actors in it. This had Mark Hamill plays the villain.
That's great.
Does he? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, plays Ripburger. Kath Sorsey and Tress McNeil play both Marlene and Susie. They are like kind of early 90s or mid to late 90s, early 2000s voice actor royalty. They did like Phil and Lil on Rugrats, Lola Bunny, that was Kath.
Wow.
And then Susie did Dot on Animaniacs and Babs Bunny. Like, this was one of the first video game projects that had SAG actors doing the voices.
Yeah,
and
it was James Woods was playing Dog Fart 40 in that game.
There you go. You got it. No, you played it, obviously. But no, it's funny because it's one of those things where when I played it back then, I knew there was something special to it. But now as a industry professional, like I can see like, oh, there's a lot of elements as to why this felt special. And again, you go back and you play it, and it's super dated. Like the jokes are, I don't think too crass. A lot of the other games in that genre kind of went that way in a lot of ways, but like they're simple, they're weird, and it has just some of the best quotes, just dumb, fun quotes, stuff that I still like. There's one biker who references a dude. He's like, that guy's got the bladder the size of a thimble. And it's one of those things that like, it has no context, but like whenever there's something when I'm out or something, like I'm like, oh, I got the bladder the size of a thimble, I gotta hit the head. Like it's just, it's burnt into my brain.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that like, oh, mechanically it really changed the way I thought about it. It's just, it took so many of my interests at that point and focused them down into a single thing. I don't know. It's definitely not the most technically impressive, but it's the first when Indigo asked, I was like, this is. I think this is it, and I don't. I'm trying to piece together why. I hope I've made
like
somewhat
a narrative
of a case.
Storytelling thing. I see a similar thing here with the journey pick as well. It recontextualizes how you deliver a narrative and how it becomes an experience rather than just oh, this is a bunch of moving objects on a screen that I'm meant to click. It's how are we going to tell this narrative like, in an early form.
And it did something. The last thing I will say is it did do something that I didn't notice a lot of these games doing and that I really appreciate at the time. In the first act, you're doing a lot of standardized point and click stuff. The second act, you're trying to find ways, spoilers, to jump a canyon on your bike, but you need parts. And the way you find these parts is differently. You basically go into what is essentially a pre-rendered 3D. It's called like the old mining road. And in the game, you're like a biker gang leader, and you have to like the old mining road is where you go to fight, where you go to basically do road rash with other bikers. But it's almost like a paper, rock, scissors kind of thing, because you have to beat one biker before you get the other one, because you get the board, because only that one happens when the biker looks up. You smack him in the face, then you get the chain. And like you do all this other, but it basically turns into a real simple road rash, like in the middle of it. So it breaks up the point and click with a bit more action than you're used to. So that was another thing I clocked when I did it. I was like, this is kind of two games, even though, again, super simple. I don't want to oversell this.
Yeah. Crossing a lot of very interesting wires there, but we've got to cross to the next game that rewired our brains. JM8, you're up, buddy. Tell us about your game. You got a segue. Hit us with a segue.
Yeah, well, speaking of speaking of changing how we view narratives and also spinning a lot of different plates mechanically, and showing how you can vary things up, my pick is going to be a game that, ever since I played it when I was a kid, has remained my favorite game of all time, and that is Beyond Good and Evil.
Ooh, yes.
Which is something very special to me. I've made videos on it in the past, and the first thing is I was used to playing games on like my PS1 and my PS2 where there weren't a lot of in-depth narratives. I was used to playing like Toy Story games and Diddy Kong Racing and, Mario 64, where there's a kind of surface level narrative happening behind all of the gameplay elements. But I hadn't really played a narrative game as a kid. And I lived in a tiny village in England, less than like 100 people in this village. It's absolutely tiny. And we had one gas station, and they used to sell games on like one of those spinners where you'd put like magazines and stuff in.
Yep.
And within the same year of this game's release, Beyond Good and Evil was being sold for £1, £1 British pound.
Wow.
And my dad was like, I'll pick that up for you. And even as a kid, I thought, well, this is going to be bad. Because it's a PS2 game for £1 and it's on a spinner. It's going to be terrible. So I had no expectations, but just like when we were younger, getting games is like a treat, right? You get one once every few months if you're lucky, and you're going to play that for that extended period. So I wasn't really expecting this interplanetary spanning narrative about a woman running an orphanage for war orphans, and it being this weird racing, photography, stealth combat game, and also like intrigue politically, and also like in a James Bond sense. It blew me away on just everything it was trying to do, and it really taught me that, one, I could care about video game characters. I have like such a huge space in my soul for Jade and Paige, less so Triple H, and then from that, exploring different gameplay mechanics of like the photography being woven into the rest of the game's ecosystem, with getting pearls as like a currency you get in that game to spend on your upgrades, and how the photography and the racing and even the stealth and exploration all tied itself back into the progression of upgrading your ship, which kind of culminated into this magical moment for me. Is like my favorite gaming moment ever, which was spoilers if you're going to play Beyond Good and Evil, which I recommend you do. It recently got a remaster, which is fantastic. You spend the entire game on a hover ship that you race across the sand and the water, and it's you like progressively upgrading it, making it faster, be able to shoot rockets and stuff like that. And then your companion Paige gets taken off to the moon, and he leaves a secret message for you that you're meant to find. But as a kid, I thought I'd uncovered a secret.
Yeah.
I was like, I've uncovered this. And he leaves like a flight module for you. So your hovercraft then you can now fly over all of this entire map that you've been trudging along. You can now fly over, which is like such a huge, like this delayed gratification for me as a kid. And then you fly into space to save him. Like you go into space with this ship, and it blew my tiny little brain. It's like, it imprinted on me so much that it's just everything I'm doing from, I think, in life is because of that game.
Yeah.
Because that's the impact it had on me. So yeah, lots of moving parts with that one, but it's just...
The one thing that I'm catching is the sensation of like, I didn't know that the game could do that, and like being able to go for like fly, and then, oh my god, if I just keep going up, I go into space. Like when those moments happen, and the more games you play, the older you get, the less things can really surprise you. But like those kinds of moments are fucking magic.
Yeah,
it felt like magic.
Yeah,
that's the high wind moment in Final Fantasy VII for me, when you get the airship and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, what? Like I've been hoofing it across this thing. I thought chocobos were fast.
Yeah.
No, it's very, very cool.
I just had it with I've been playing recently Dune Awakening, and they have the exact same thing with it's very difficult to play that game. Everything wants you dead, and you spend 20 to 30 hours struggling against the game, and then you build the Ornithopter, which is like the flying machines. And then you take command of the skies, and the sense of freedom and relief you feel from it is only really possible because of the hardships beforehand. And Beyond Good and Evil does that a little bit, but it's more of expanding on a mechanic rather than being like, it's hard to play at the beginning, right?
A real through line of like freedom going through, like games producing that feeling
100%.
of freedom from our picks.
And even from the narrative side, I had a whole list of like, Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear, Resident Evil, all of these games that I think all do feed on a narrative bit and a discovery bit. And for me, I was just looking. So Full Throttle came out in '95, right? I believe I'm a little bit older than everyone else on the show by at least 200 to 300 years. But the way I'm looking at it, I keep being like, is this the earliest time I experienced a narrative in a video game that I was paying attention to? Because Final Fantasy VII, 1997, Metal Gear Solid, 98, Resident Evil, 96. Like, the only thing I could think of is like when it's a more truly like a puzzle game like Myst, which was 93, but that didn't have like characters directly talking to you outside of the two brothers top of the pages. So like even with Beyond Good and Evil with Journey, which is telling a different story, you kind of make the narrative ties yourself with other silent protagonists. There's something interesting that like maybe it is about like when we all realized that we would actually like beyond like, oh man, this game was super fun, or I can't wait to beat it. Like when you give a shit about what is actually happening.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That was the exact thing with not to harp on about Dune again, but I was saying this to my partner. I don't like survival games. I've never liked them. I find a lot of the repeated farming and that whole cycle very tedious for very little personal reward. And I understood why other people enjoyed them, but I didn't personally enjoy them. But this one really grabbed me, and I was talking to my partner. I was like, why? What's different about this? And I'm paraphrasing, but she basically said, you like Dune, so you care about surviving in this world. You care about the narrative being presented, right? It means something to you. And I think that's what all of these games come back to, like you were saying, Matt. It's just we care about them. Like I have games that I have way more hours in, but these ones actually care about the characters, the world, and the experience and the narrative we're portraying.
Yeah, like I've played way more Grand Theft Auto across all the instances, but I don't give a crap really about anything, including my GTA character, online character, who I'm sure I've spent more time with than Ben of the Polecats in Full Throttle.
It's by copies bought. All of our favorite games are Skyrim, and that's definitely not the case. But
I also picked a game for this because I've also been playing games for quite a while. And if I could bring us forward in time, though, to the modern year of 2004, the Game Boy Advance title. And I picked a game that I think really rewired my brain and may have done irreparable damage to who I am as a person, like permanently, and how I've played all games since then. And it's Fire Emblem Sacred Stones was one of the first like RPGs I really played. I'm a big fan of the Fire Emblem series since then because I really loved like having a little armies, you move them around the board, get to know all the individual characters. But something that this game had and a lot of the other early Fire Emblem titles had was a support system where you didn't have a player character, but you could like mush the Barbies of the other characters in the game together to get them to interact. But you could only get them to interact with 5 other support levels per every run, and there'd be like 30 characters in the game. And so something in young Indigo's brain was permanently fried when she realized she's gonna have to play through this game like 100 times if you want to see every piece of support conversation. And I said, yeah, I want to do that. And it introduced me to the concept of replayability in a game, right? Like, you are going to really put a lot of hours into this thing. You're going to engage with the story from every possible angle. You're going to get very deep into the weeds on it because you want to see more of what this game has to offer, what this world has to offer. So it's a different version of let's engage with the story. Yeah.
Did that impact you in a positive way? Because I know a lot of people who actively want to avoid those things. So you could view it in two ways.
No.
It's I don't want to tackle all these things, or it's fine for me to not do everything right now because I can come back and do more. Like, what did that do to you in your brain rewiring?
Is it a net good for me as a person? No, because it has ruined me for every subsequent RPG I play. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is my white whale, right? Like I'm never going to see everything in that game no matter how hard I try.
No.
But I like the experience of really plunging the depths of what a game has included within it. So I think it was fun, and it taught me something about who I am and how I like games, but I can't in good conscience recommend this as a strategy for anyone else. Like, don't do this to yourself, right?
Yeah, that's completely fair.
There is something magical though. Even if you're, I see the magic obviously from the life ruiningness that this has done to you, but also was something that is always a real grabbing point for me for a game is because I very rarely replay, but I love I'm the kind of person that for like 90% of the time, unless we're literally talking about Baldur's Gate or Cyberpunk, I think at this point where there's so much open-ended stuff. I'm the kind of person that like when I finish the game, I love that when I know there's a plethora of options, I love that my character chose this, didn't choose that, did that, and then they're done. There's a reason actually why in Cyberpunk, when Phantom Liberty came out, my V had already finished. My V had left Night City. Her and Judy are together forever somewhere, being very, very happy. And I was like, well, then Phantom Liberty like knocks you back, and I was like, well, I don't want to know. So I started a new one so I could play Phantom Liberty because it was like a completely different thing. Like it's
like a branching universe.
It didn't make any sense. So so anyway, very rarely do I do that, but I love when it's completed and done, and that version of whatever player is gone. And I love that those options exist and like are in the ether that I will never see. I don't know. It's interesting.
I dig that.
It's one of those elements of video games that I think is so cool is that they are interactive and like the version of the game that exists for you as a person at any given point in time, even if it's not, I love a story dense RPG with options, but even the ones that are more on the rails, like you're never going to experience Super Mario Bros. The same way twice. Like you and your buddies sitting around playing in the basement are not going to have that same feeling every time you play the game, but the way that you've chosen to interact with it will create these nostalgic feelings for you depending on how you go into that game or
makes
create
it's what makes them so hard to design, right? Because not even from are you gonna get the same feeling from this, it's just what is the player gonna do? Because if any of you guys have tested games before, it's a nightmare because you're like, this is how the players, they're going to come in here, they're going to see this and know what to do. And the player will come in and just do the complete opposite of what you think they're going to do. And it's a nightmare, but why it's so fun to make.
That's why we all love playing them and talking about them. But we should talk about them in other kinds of ways because we've got questions to get to related to video games. So with that flawless segue complete, let's get to some Q&A questions. So this first question comes from one of our lovely patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, support the channel, consider becoming a patron for a chance to have your question read first on a future regular or bonus podcast episode. This question comes from Leisha Joy. To all, in the previous OSPod, you talked at length about the pros and cons of adapting video games into movies or TV shows. I'm curious about the opposite. Are there any non-video game works that you would like to see adapted into a video game?
Oh no, I'm going to talk about Dune again. I think Dune, Dune Awakening is very tied to the Denis Villeneuve kind of aesthetic and very tied to that kind of world. And what they've done is they've taken things from the books that, because Frank Herbert, for all of that man's negative points, wrote a fantastic world and really thought out how that world worked. And it really lends itself to becoming a video game. Like when you go through all of the mechanics and all of the intricacies of like the Bene Gesserit, the Mentat, things like Hunter Seekers, the Holtzman shields that encourage melee combat and can't be penetrated by bullets, and the idea of a land war over the most valuable resource in the world lends itself really well to being a PvP like extraction shooter at the end of this game. The world of Arrakis needs to be survived. Right, it all makes sense, and it makes me think, how has this not been done before? And I'm trying to think, are there any other potentially literary works that lend themselves to gameplay really well? Because it usually doesn't work in the other way around. Like, let's take, it kind of messes up that way. What books could work?
I was thinking that, and maybe this is so obvious that it was like done in the 80s and 90s and everyone decided, oh, this is a terrible idea. But I feel like you could maybe actually design a pretty fun, like traditional, like PS3 era kind of action adventure game like Uncharted Light based off of the Odyssey, where you're just kind of going around to islands and fighting different monsters.
Wow,
it doesn't need to be terribly complicated. I don't think, like, you could probably maybe do a big open world survival thing. I think they kind of like gestured at that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and that's the part of the game I liked the least. But I feel like you could potentially do like a mythological kind of game with the power of the PlayStation 3. Because I know there are some like early attempts at mythology based games. I remember when I was like young and looking up like Amazon product listings of video games, like, oh, there's this new game, Shadow of the Colossus, that sounds cool. I'm gonna go buy the Star Wars game instead. And then an entire alternate reality where I got into Shadow of the Colossus 15 years earlier, missed. But I feel like that could be a fun kind of thing to do, where that sense of like adventure and mythological grandeur to it.
For me.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, probably pretty linear.
There's also the dangers if we want to go that sort of thing. We could go into that. You said PS3, and I was like, isn't there something? It's not nearly the same, obviously, as the Odyssey, but there is, of course, Dante's Inferno.
I was thinking Dante's Inferno.
I jumped past that and went to the Odyssey.
That's only the PS4.
PS3 game is it PS4? Is it?
I don't know.
Oh, no,
I don't know.
I
thought it was 3. I was gonna say, I believe it's the only PlayStation game that I've ever tried and successfully platinumed. I don't know why I did that. I had a really lonely summer in 2010.
Yeah, 2010. Yep.
Yeah, but
I think it's really weird though, right? Because just like I was saying with Dune, like it lends itself really well to becoming mechanics. To turn Dante's Inferno into an action game, you have to take some massive leap.
Yes,
because when you boil Dante's Inferno down,
he just walks places.
He walks everywhere. Everyone's really sad, and they tell him he's a good poet.
Yeah,
and then like.
It's not even true, because half the time he passes out and wakes up in the next area.
Yeah,
Virgil dragging him by his ankle.
That's your loading screen.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I really should get a better answer, because I've had this question before. I go back to again, this is a game that did exist, so I will say I was actually quite a big fan of more of the first, less of the second adaptations of Buffy the Vampire Slayer into the Xbox games. I thought it had the enough of the feeling of the show and turned into a beat 'em up, which essentially the non-emotional parts of that show tended to be. So like it did transfer very well, but that's something that was already done. I don't actually have one for something that like, oh man, if only House MD had a game. Like I have no idea what my thing would be.
Sometimes it's Sherlock games. Various,
yeah.
I mean, The Witcher, I guess, is an incredible example.
Yeah. Here's what I would love to see. Here we go. I would love to see like a CD Projekt Red or a Witcher style RPG in the world, not following the characters of, in the world of Cowboy Bebop.
Ooh, yeah.
I think that would be dope as hell. Like I want to go to all the places in that show and beyond in the solar system and the hypergates and all that stuff. I think that'd be very fun.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was racking my brain trying to think of a space property that had not already been made into a video game with that kind of a world, but that's a great pick for it.
There might be a Cowboy Bebop game somewhere, but I know there's not like a like an actual like Witcher-esque RPG in that world, because I would have lost myself to it.
I think one that doesn't exist that I would like, and this will be quick, is a Death Stranding-esque walking sim where you play as the Fellowship. And you're walking
Yes.
That'd be dope. That'd be
That's
so
got
dope.
big Wii Fit energy.
Yeah, you have to walk it.
Yeah, get the ring out, get your steps in.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The biggest sin of the Switch
ring?
2, even with all the controversy, is that the Ring Fit does not work with it.
Doesn't?
Yeah.
Our Lord of the Rings dreams die before they can even reach Mount Doom.
Lord of the Ring
Carry
Fit.
that one ring.
One ring fit to rule them all. Well, we've got
Apart from Switch 2.
we've got more questions to get to. This one comes from Virtual Pineapple. To all, what are some of your favorite video game locations and why? So what are some locations in games that you really loved?
God, I'm going to butcher this. Just recently, in Shadow of the Erd Tree, I forget the name of the area, this is minor spoilers, but it's lore spoilers. It's not like mechanical spoilers. Eventually you make it to a certain part, and I won't spoil where you end up in what is essentially a beautiful flowered grove and old village where the character of Marika supposedly grew up. And there's no enemies there. Specifically, it is a big area where you find one item and there are no enemies, and the music changes to more of a simple one or two instrumental version of the like bam bam dung 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 dung, but like a sweet version of the menu music. And I was like, is this whole place just to give me a vibe and nothing else? And I just walked around it for like 20-25 minutes, and like I was like, environmental storytelling off the chart. Yeah. I feel like I have a better idea of like a part of this character's life that I never Mikola, I think I said Marika. Mikola, I believe is the main person who did the thing in Shadow of the Ring and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Everyone can come at me for getting the names. I get the names wrong of Elden Ring characters all the time, but when I walked into that area, that is my favorite one by far in a long time, because again, it was just to give you a feeling. There was no other goal. And when you know it can be that powerful, it stuck with me.
That's iconic. I've seen a couple videos of like the architecture of Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree, and I'm like, I'm not gonna play this game just for the architecture because I'm so fucking bad at FromSoft games. But oh man, if there was anything that could get me in.
It is stunning.
It is.
Absolutely stunning. Mm-hmm. I think for me, I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna go back to Beyond Good and Evil. Yeah. I think my most memorable one and my favorite one would be there's a section in there where you walk into the Yakuda bar. You go to the main city and you go into the bar where you're meant to be meeting an informant. Just a combination of the music, the seedy vibe, as like a giant cow bartender, because there are like anthropomorphic animals as characters in the game, and you have to play a little shell game to get into the secret base. And I hate him. There's a guy there who plays this like weird paddleboard game with you, to give you a pearl, and he mocks you every time you lose. And if you repeatedly lose to him, he will email you later in the game and be just to taunt you and be like, oh yeah, you couldn't beat me. I bet you're never going to come back and beat me again. He is so annoying. Francis should have emails as an
This
option.
reminds me of if any of you guys ever played any of the Spy Fox games. Spy Fox Dry Cereal. It's a point and click game from like 2002 or something.
You've unlocked
There's
a memory
a bar on a Greek island that you do most of the game, and you go down to this bar and you have to beat this fuck-ass character at Go Fish, and he cheats. He sucks. I hate him. He's the worst.
Same Francis energy. I hate him so much. But that's art, right? If art is making you feel,
yes,
succeeded.
Exactly. So. I might for my location, it's like, oh man, those cities from Assassin's Creed 2, they should make those. That'd be super cool. Very strong place in my heart for Florence, especially in AC2. But I would also, I really like. I would never want to go there, but the train from Uncharted 2 is just burned into my brain so strongly. I would never wish to be there in real life, but oh man, is that a video game ass location if I've ever seen one.
Especially it's starting in media res, like just to open with it and then just build up to it. Like as soon as you get on that train, like at that midpoint, you're like, it's coming. Oh, no. How are we going to get to this point? It's so good. So good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's excellent. I think I'd have to go for the Afterlife bar from Cyberpunk 2077, because walking into that location for the first time in the game, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I fully buy into the concept of this. Like, I do want to be a Night City legend now. It's the perfect level of like seedy, built-in, historic, and then also futuristic, cyberpunky meld.
Yeah.
Just so fun to walk around and
it feels super lived in. There are characters that you run into later on that like are just there having drinks or talking to someone and leave. Like you can spot them, and it's just cool because like it's a center point. Yeah,
exactly.
I changed my answer. Rapture Christmas Eve, 1957, before it goes to shit.
There you go.
Yes, fantastic.
I will simply never die.
Yeah.
Oh, mine.
That's great.
Valid.
I'm just such a slut for Art Deco architecture. That's
It's
probably
so
where that started for me.
It's so 100%.
Good.
Yeah,
me too.
take a shot every time Blue answers one of these questions based on his love of architecture.
Basic.
Speaking of questions, we've got more to get to. This one comes from Narast to all. I've played Ghost of Tsushima recently, then switched to Breath of the Wild, and I noticed a severe drop in quality of the horse. So I gotta ask, what are your favorite and least favorite mounts in video games? This can be any stuff that you ride to get from point A to point B, but let's leave vehicles out of it. So of the non-vehicular mounts of games, what are some of your faves? What are some of your least faves?
This person needs to play Red Dead 2 and then horses will be ruined for them forever.
Horses will be
Jay,
ruined,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Not the horse balls.
Yeah.
So mine would be a game that's very dear to my heart, which is Guild Wars 2. It was the first. Mounts are a huge thing in MMOs, especially World of Warcraft. I know me and Matt are big WoW heads. Guild Wars 2 was the first game to basically take the idea of an MMO mount, which is effectively just a speed boost and or flying, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the later game, and make them into a mechanical expression that is then tested in the environment themselves. So in that game, they have a raptor, which it has abilities and it jumps really far horizontally. They have a bunny that jumps really high vertically. They have a jackal that teleports, and a skimmer that can fly over water. And the level design is then changed and encourages you to switch between them to traverse the map. And they're kind of used in a Metroidvania-y way. Like, you can't access certain areas till you get the mounts and train them up, which is really fun. And the best thing of all is that they marketed the game that they would have these 4 mounts. And then when we all got into the expansion, a bunch of the devs were flying around on griffins. And we were like, what are these? And there was a secret 5th mount that you had to do this massive quest chain and secrets to unlock. And it was like such a beautiful surprise. I massively respect the Guild Wars 2 devs for doing that for the mounts.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it's the horses in Oblivion. Horses in Oblivion are bad. Not only did they usher in, and it's not their fault, horse armor and DLC, but the just in playing the remaster, I cannot tell you how many times I cannot stop that thing and I don't know, it just does not feel like a good time, and I have tumbled off a cliff or two or gotten a little bit. I feel like in Skyrim they got a little better, but also I didn't really ride a lot in Skyrim, I don't think.
No.
And there's so many mods, you could turn it into a Porsche. It's, it's fine.
It's true.
Yeah, Skyrim for me always got me with the horse. Whenever you would fast travel, it would also travel with you. So then it would just sort of be a guy lurking off in a nearby cliff. I'm like, oh, I guess my mount's up there.
Yeah.
It baffles me with games like Breath of the Wild and stuff like that. I feel like it's a shame when games have other modes of traversal that are more fun than being on a horse, and sometimes more effective. Like I basically never used a horse in Breath of the Wild. Not to say that I think that is the preferred way of playing and you should play like that. It's just how I operated. I'd rather climb a structure, look around, then glide. That's just what I prefer to do. But like with Ghost of Tsushima, it's very vital that you use your horse. So it becomes an attachment to you.
Yeah, I think Tsushima is one of the few games that actually manages to make horse riding like a vibe, because there is, unless you decide to get like Bennett Foddy-esque with it, there's really no way to make riding a horse interesting mechanically. It's just you hold the analog stick and you go faster than you'll walk. And in me like playing various open world games, like I tried Assassin's Creed with your horses in the big open worls, and I tried The Witcher, and I was like, most of this game feels like riding around on a horse. I know it's more than that, but I bounced off of it because I was like, I can't do the horses. I played Red Dead 1, and I'm like, I don't like horse riding in video games. It's just such a non-mechanic for me that I feel like I would rather run around, climb, shield surf, which should be the main mechanic in Breath of the Wild, and it is only one of them, which is like, okay, fine, I get it. But the mode of transportation I have most enjoyed in all my time with gaming is probably the Jackdaw or similar from the Assassin's Creed pirate games, to go on a ship and sail around and just let that be a vibe where, yes, it is a non-mechanic. You just kind of go. You don't even need to hold the analog stick, but the feeling of being out on a ship is so wildly different from the act of running or alternatively running, but there's a slightly different animation playing and there's a horse underneath you while you're doing it. It feels so different. And having your crew and the songs and the sun and the wind, it's so much of a vibe. And again, the journey made me figure this out about myself. It's such a vibe, and that is perfect for me. Strictly speaking, I like the Morrigan more because the ship combat is harder in Assassin's Creed Rogue. The Jackdaw is way too easy, but like I'll take it. It's the iconic one of the two for sure.
Yeah. Simultaneously a character and also a floating hub.
Yeah.
Like it does so much right. That game,
I love Black.
That game is so good.
But they're rumored to be a remake.
Heavily rumored, all but confirmed by a couple people who are, knock on wood, working with some transmedia like merch stuff with it.
Yeah. There we
go.
I think early next year is last I heard. We'll see.
Yeah, it feels like the more integrated into the game beyond just being way for player to move fast a mount is, the more we seem to like them. As I was trying to think of a good answer for this question, and like the chocobos from like Final Fantasy come to mind of like, well, they're iconic, love those little chicken bird leg guys. But the game that had, I don't know that this counts for the question because it is kind of a vehicle, but it's a little bit alive, so I'm going to count it. Sable is a game where you are traversing a desert on a bike that you modify. Like you build it yourself. You get like 3 segments that you can put together and mix and match. And how you build the bike heavily influences how it feels to like drive it around in the game. Like how much it drifts. Will it, when you go over dunes, will it like really get some air time? How fast can it go? And it makes building the bike and traversing a desert that you cannot get by on foot really interesting. And it really attaches you to the bike because you're like, no, I've finally honed in the exact combination of parts of this bike that are going to give me the exact traversal experience that I want. And it feels really great when you figure that shit out. So that'd be my mount of choice.
I want to change my answer because I just thought of something that was amazing and the most infuriating thing I've ever had to deal with, and that is the King of Red Lions in Wind Waker. So listen, a lot of good, but the second you have to turn and go on a dime to get like one of those like fishing holes or anything you have to do in a specific area or back up or do anything, I was so mad at that friggin' dragon ship.
Boats famously unruly.
Yeah. I've got the Starbomb Boy in His Boat song in my head right now.
Well, speaking of things that are annoying or difficult in video games, we've got a question related to that. From Tomato Cannot into Productive to all, most annoying and or difficult video game enemy. So what is your most annoying or difficult enemy in a game? Everyone is going into their mind palaces simultaneously to just rocket through the worst experiences they've had.
I don't want to go to.
We've blocked all this out, and now we're bringing the trauma back.
Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot.
Yeah.
Lock in. Final answer.
Zaslav for what he's doing to Warner Brother Games or what he did.
I was like, there's the Marauder from Doom, but I haven't played it, but I know people hate it. But no, it's Eve.
The only enemy I think I've never successfully defeated, like with the expanse of time, because I think we lost the game in the space between me and my younger brothers passing the DS around to try and beat it, and today when we're recording this podcast, is there's a stomach level in Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and just none between the 3 Indigo siblings, not a single one of us could get past that level. So I guess that's my answer, although I've blocked enough of it out that I couldn't tell you what the details of that level were.
I think I've got a combo.
Okay.
Mine's I don't know if I'm going to be generalizing too much. I understand why these things exist, but it doesn't mean I have to like them.
Yeah.
Which is just oddly placed ranged enemies in melee fighting games. Like, you walk into a room and you're like, there's 4 dudes here, it's going to be great. And then up on a ledge, there's just one little, like, goober, and he's like, ooh, yeah. And he's just, like, randomly pipping off his arrows. And you always have to occupy a certain amount of your brain with them. And I get why that's done. But I hate it. I hate that it's like a chore. I have to come get you. I just want to fight these dudes.
Yeah. I would say maybe, and again, everyone could tell me to get good, the basilisks in Dark Souls. I feel like there's no enemy in those games that makes me feel worse from dying. Every boss that I have to run back to included. Like, there's something about the Death Blight or when you die with their poison breath that just, like, again, you can avoid it, you can get around it, you can do the right things, but for whatever reason, my play styles, I'm always like, I can get them before they do it. Oh no, oh great, okay, so maybe them. Yeah.
I'd like to change my answer. I very recently started an honor mode run for the first time of Baldur's Gate, and I absolutely biffed it almost immediately because of the skeletons under the alchemy shop in the Blighted Village, and they killed me two attempts in a row. I hate those guys. They're not a hard boss. They're not even a boss. They're just annoying.
Is that right outside the mirror?
Yeah, right outside the mirror.
Yeah.
I was so ready for the mirror to try and fireball me that it completely didn't occur to me that I'd have to also fight some skeletons.
Normal skellies. It reminds me of a time I did a hardcore run of Diablo 3, and I was doing my first like hardcore like permadeath run. Got to like the end game. I was like 2 rooms away from fighting Diablo. Like I was about to do it with a friend. We were just casually going, just absolutely destroying everything around us. And then this one skeleton crept through all of my AoEs like like nothing was hitting him, like he was the main character. And he just like comically walked up to me and just went one-shot me and killed my run. Just this one tiny little dude. No, not a boss, just this one tiny skelly. I was just like,
it's a skeleton's world. We're all just living in it, apparently.
It really is.
That's brutal.
It's horrible.
Oh man. Well, now that we all appropriately reminisced down our deep pits of despair. So we got one final question here to get through, and then we're wrapping up this trip down memory lane. Some memories locked away for a reason. This next question comes from Person Man. To all, what is a video game ability that is completely normal in game, but concerning in real life? For example, eating a whole wheel of cheese in 1 second in Skyrim. So what's something that you can do in a game that if you saw someone do that in real life, you'd be very, very concerned?
Double jump.
Double jump is a good answer.
Double jump. I would instantly question all rules of physics and whatever gods you believe in. It doesn't make... I mean, there's ways you could in our, like, maybe they have, hey, you know what? Maybe they have the boots from the Super Mario Brothers movie, the original one, not the new one, because those jump boots worked and that they could basically do whatever. I don't know. Yeah, double jump would be very disconcerting.
My cursed answer is quick load.
That's a good one. That's a good one. See, I'm getting too granular. You've got these broad concepts that are cosmically terrifying if you saw them in action. I guess mine would be. Let's just get more abstract with it. Pausing. Not even for like either. They pause everything else around them, and it's kind of like they're teleporting or like doing weird stuff, or they just go completely blank and act like nothing's happening, and they are impervious. Like they cannot be damaged, they cannot be like rattled. They are just like effectively a statue, and then they come back and act like nothing's happened. Oh, I've just had my food. I'm back.
Yeah.
What?
Or like also in Skyrim where you eat 10 wheels of cheese, then change your pants, and like you're a brand new person.
Yeah.
A split second later.
Yeah, I've respect.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Maybe this is just a me problem, but I feel like potions, like health potions in video games, because you need to be able to see them on your screen, they're always larger than like the size of like a shot would be, and you like throw those things back when you're healing fast in combat. Yeah. If I saw someone doing that in real life, I'd be very concerned. Yeah, Matt's holding up his full like
giant
thermos.
tumbler.
Yeah.
It's like I would get that even just in general. If someone was like, "I'm so thirsty," and just like in half a second necked an entire pitcher of water, I'd be disturbed. I'd be like, what?
How are you?
Who's convincing you to drink that quick?
And then you see them quick load, and you're like, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna die."
They double jump their way away. You know, it's a little faster sometimes if you just only jump instead of holding down the run button. So someone's just hopping down the street, chugging a full tumbler full of
You work in a science
liquid.
facility and you see someone bunny hopping down the hallways. You're like, oh shit, the particle accelerator is going to open up a gate to hell. God damn it, not again.
terrifying. Our love for video games perhaps should not bring those abilities into the real world is the moral of this podcast.
Well, look, maybe double jumping. I would take it. If I could do it, I wouldn't care that everyone would freak out.
How would you feel about like a large mushroom that you could jump onto and it acted like a trampoline? Would that be in the realm?
Yeah, I mean that would feel safer because like a trampoline does that. It just if you're just thinking like a naturally formed trampoline. Right?
I guess like, I'm just thinking of a trampoline.
How do you feel about trampolines?
In the woods, if I ran into a mushroom in the woods that had the attributes of a trampoline, I don't know if I would I'd freak out for a second, but I think my level of fun would outweigh my level of fear.
I guess quick temperature check. If you saw a trampoline-sized mushroom in the real woods, would your first thought be I should jump on that? Because for me, I'm like I'm gonna jump on that and then I'll get to go extra high this time.
Yeah. And there's probably something up in the tree that someone left there specifically because his mushroom is there. That's
where a collectible ought to be, you know?
Yeah.
My first thought would be, Yahoo!
Yeah. Woohoo! Okie dokie.
Well, on that note, I will leap off of the perfectly placed mushroom of let's get out of this podcast. Blue, would you? Red's not here to do her terrible outro. Blue, could you do a very normal outro for us?
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to this bonus episode of the Overly Sarcastic Podcast. We'll be back with another podcast episode next week and other stuff, in the middle of that, regular videos. But before then, you can also go check out the channels of our wonderful guests, JM8 and Matt. Can you tell people where they can find your stuff?
Sure. I'll jump in. You can find the things that I do over at Extra History and Extra Credits over on the YouTube machines or on Nebula. You can also check out my erroneously titled podcast, the only podcast about movies. There is an asterisk in there somewhere, wherever fine podcasts are sold. And I want to plug another. There's another podcast that I just did that I'm super, super proud of. There's a podcast called Screen Drafts, and it's basically like sports drafts, but for movies and particular things. Ooh. And I was just a guest on there with Patrick Willems, and we did action comedies. I believe it launches tomorrow after this is recording, so the beginning of July.
Awesome.
And I will say, my picks will really piss people off. And I'm looking forward to polite conversations. You can also find me on BlueSky if you'd like to have a polite conversation. Matthew Kroll over there.
Great. And Jay?
Oh, it's me. Hello. My name's Jay. You can watch all of my stuff specifically on Second Wind on the YouTube boxes. On there, I make a show called Design Delve. It's about game design and how games are made with me and my lovely dog Ludo. I also have my own podcast. I have Windbreaker podcast, which I'm with Marty Sleever and Yartza Croshaw, and the DevHeads podcast, which is a game dev adjacent one. So come check that stuff out. And soon you're going to be hearing stuff about my game that's coming out. So stay tuned for that. Ooh.
Exciting.
But yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Go check out the channels of our lovely guests, and we will catch you all next time.
Adios.
Bye.
Sweet. Goodbye.
Thanks so much for listening to this very special bonus episode of the Overly Sarcastic Podcast. We'll be back with a regularly scheduled episode on July 23rd, but if you miss us before then, be sure to check out Overly Sarcastic Productions on YouTube. Got a question for the pod? Head over to Ask OSPod on Discord for a chance for your question to be featured in a future episode. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us and leave a review on your preferred podcast platform, and if you really enjoyed the show, consider becoming a patron for even more exclusive benefits. Thanks for listening.